Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Journey Discussions. I'm Troy Kilpatrick, and we thank you all for coming and joining us here tonight as we broadcast live at the Journey Museum and Learning Center and in Pierre, South Dakota, and in parts unknown in Rapid City, South Dakota, as we practice safe programming in our Zoom world here with our curatorial team at the Journey Museum and Learning Center. If you've been joining us and for past Journey discussions, you know that at journeymuseum.org, we have these programs all recorded and you can watch them on demand. We've got a great group of programs that are out there. I won't list them all out for you guys. This is the last one for this summer, but we will be having additional programs coming in the month of June. So make sure you're getting our emails, make sure you're watching our website. We'll touch on one of those programs with our curatorial team here today when we get the opportunity to do that. But we're going to do a lot of different things here tonight. We're getting ready. We're excited to be opening up 5 days a week, which I'm sure a couple years ago we would have never had a special announcement or a celebration that we were going to be open 5 days a week. But after all things COVID-19, in the past 14 months that all of us has been through, we all know there's no such thing as returning to normal. This is just the latest version of it all. A year ago at this time, if you can think back, and I do this reflection exercise every now and then, a year ago in May, we would have been closed for a couple weeks. We would have been about at our midpoint. We ended up being closed for 103 consecutive days without opening up to the public. I know when we reopened, we kind of were open here and there. Different days and different guesses of when was the right times for us to be open. But next Wednesday, May 19th, we'll be open 5 days a week, every week, all summer long, Wednesdays through Sundays. So that people can count on us, so that our community members can count us, so our visitors come into the area and know that they can plan a great visit at the Journey Museum and Learning Center. So the part of the purpose of this program tonight is it's being recorded so people can know what is available at the Journey Museum and Learning Center this summer. And I'm really excited to be able to talk about things that have been enhanced, things that are new and better than ever before, even while we worked our way through the pandemic. And so we've created a few special videos for you folks here tonight. And again, what's really unique about tonight's program, let me introduce the young lady in your Zoom screen, Corey Christensen. She is our curator here for the Journey. She's our curator. She's been our exhibits person, our administrative person. She's worn many hats. She's joining us tonight from Pierre. And we're thankful for that. And Connor McMahon, who is the chief curator and the leader for the Sioux Indian Museum collection here in Rapid City, part of the Department of Interior, the Indian Arts and Crafts Board. And so you guys, if you've been on a Journey discussion, you know, you can ask a question down in the chat mode to us, and I will gather that question and we'll have a Q&A with our curators a few minutes into this program after we've talked a little bit about all the things that the Journey has coming, what we're so excited about being open 5 days a week. We're coming up on our birthday too. This museum opened on May 18th, 1997. And so we made it through last year. And we used to have a big celebration and a big party in the gallery. A couple months ago, we weren't sure we could plan to do such a thing. So we decided we were always going to do something kind of like this online, where we just sort of mark and celebrate the date. But May 18th, 2021 will be 24 years for the Journey to have been open. And I can tell you, and I want to assure everybody, mark your calendar for 2022, because we're going to turn 25 years of age, silver birthday, silver anniversary, whatever. And we have high hopes that we can just have a big audience, have some cake, have some beverages of your choice, punch, pop, of course, something like that, right, Corey? But we're going to celebrate because it's been a long road. It's been a long road for those original founders who started the museum. The challenges that were around the museum for the first 10 to 15 years. And then we sort of found ourselves as the Journey Museum and Learning Center. And we're really proud of all of those things that we've added in the educational voice here for our museum and for our community. And then, COVID-19 just kind of knocked us off our wheels here for a little bit, but it's not going to slow us down. It's not going to stop us, but it's going to be a process to get all the way back. And so that we're going to celebrate the fact that we're still here and that we are making plans for 2022. So thank you all of you who are tuning in tonight or watching on demand. We appreciate your support. As we open 5 days a week, we'd like to say to all the members who are seeing this, hey, come in and see us. There's a lot of new stuff that's happening here at the museum. Every day, 5 days a week, we're going to have a toddler time session for the 1 to 5 year olds specifically. Our education team will have activities for them every morning, every afternoon. We'll have discovery expeditions every morning, every afternoon for like the 6 to 11 year old age range. You have Journey into Space every morning and every afternoon for the kiddos my age, actually anybody's age, but I love Journey into Space. As a matter of fact, we'll have a poll out here that you guys can interact with as far as what's your favorite part of the Journey Museum. And I think we put Journey into Space as one of those items on there on my prompting, I think, that's listed out there. So every day, 5 days a week, while we're open, you can go to our site. You can see what are the educational programs that are being featured. And if you're a family, if you've got kids or maybe grandkids or nieces and nephews, I'd like to talk a little bit about our summer camps. But first, we've got a little video that'll kind of introduce the summer camps and their themes that we're doing this summer here. So we'll play that for you guys here, and then we'll come back into me. Kudos to Alyssa. We love that music there. We're clapping our hands right along with that. So the summer camps, they're half-day sessions, Monday through Thursdays, folks. The attendances, we're capped at 18 campers. That way, we're managing the numbers. Again, when we're planning all this stuff, we're trying to be safe. All of the campers get their own individual educational kits and supplies to work with. And there's a morning session and an afternoon session. You saw the dates. Basically, we have a camp each month, June, July, and August. You'll be able to be more specific. Go to journeymuseum.org. You can see the exact dates. Contact Tally Monteau here at the Journey, our education team. She can provide you with more details. I am aware that several of the camps have a number of campers in them. There's still a few spaces available. So if you're interested, jump in. It'll be a great experience. We guarantee we do STEAM education here: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So we're using all of the aspects of STEM and art combined together when we put our interactive educational things together. And we're really proud of the camps. We persevered last summer through COVID-19. I think we had camps of 9, and we tested the half days, and parents liked the half days, specifically Monday through Thursday. It gets you able to get out of town on Friday if you want, go somewhere for a weekend. So it seemed to be a winning idea, and we're going to do that again this year. So as we get ready to open up here, we've got some stuff happening in the museum, sponsored by the South Dakota Arts Council, a residency for recovery here. And it features artist Evans Flammond Sr. And we've got a little video, but this mural is an enhancement to our museum that will go on for many, many years. And so while 2020 was extraordinarily difficult, it's a gift. to be able to have some original art like this. And I know we've got a video here that features Connor and myself, along with Evans, talking about the mural. And I think if we could cue that up, we're going to share with you some images and some backstory for the mural, and then encourage you to come in and really get an opportunity to spend some time with it. And then soon we're going to pull Connor into the mix here, and he's going to get a chance to talk a little bit instead of Troy doing all the talking. So Alyssa, when you're ready, let's go ahead and roll the Unity mural video.
For many years, the main gallery of the Sweeney Museum has had this decorative design on the carpet. We decided to replace that and kind of take the opportunity to create a new piece of art to fill that space. And we really hope it'll kind of become one of the signature pieces here at the Journey Museum, right? When people go to the Louvre, they go to see the Mona Lisa, right? Mm-hmm. When they go to the British Museum, they go to see the Elgin Marbles, and that's what they remember. So we kind of hope that this piece will help encourage people to come visit the museum, whether you're from Rapid City and just haven't been here in a while, or you're coming from out of state and want to see this epic piece of Native American art. And we kind of hope that this is what people will remember too. When they walk away at the end of the day, the next day, this will be the piece that they'll think of when they think of the Journey Museum and Learning Center.
Making the concept for the whole project, that name couldn't be more appropriate for what's really going on now with these troubled times. And this is representing a good portion of that, as far as the 4 nationalities, which every color represents, and how we could all get along better, make this world a better place, and the 4 directions, and you got the triangular forms here representing the Black Hills, the buffalo for provider, and the horses for the horse culture, which my people were very in tune to, and then you got the sky, which represents the sky right in the center, mm-hmm. Like the negative space aspect, where if you go beyond that, in my vision, in my heart, like sky's the limit, whatever you can achieve. I think that's the most exciting part about this whole project now, is that it's on the floor. Mm-hmm. It's on the floor, and it's going to be protected with the epoxy going over it. So it's like you're going to be walking on a piece of glass, looking through at a beautiful piece of artwork. We're representing the whole surroundings of the museum and the culture and the Black Hills all in one shot. When you look at this mural, and when you find out its meaning, I want you to, it's going to make you reflect on your life. I want it to be that deep, and not only reflect on your own life and the path you're going down, but I want you to admire the art too. And that's what it's all about. The admiration for someone to look at it and say, okay, it means all this. Am I doing that as a human being? So it might help someone. It's going to be that powerful. It's going to actually help someone change for the better. When I first started the project, it was a pretty emotional time, as far as like all the friends I lost, my mother, my niece, and my brother, all during COVID. Not didn't die from the COVID, but just died during that time, and not to mention a lot of friends, and I reflected a lot on change. But I created the whole thing thinking about a lot of that stuff.
Evans, I'd like to thank you for putting your heart and soul into this project. It's a gift and a blessing for us to be able to have this here at the Journey Museum and Learning Center. It's been my honor to get to know you. And again, I thank you for your heart and soul, because I know you put that into your work. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you guys for thinking about me to do such a piece, and it was an honor to do in such a wonderful museum establishment, and to all the staff here that treated me so good the whole time I was here. It was just wonderful.
We want to make sure that we recognize the South Dakota Arts Council for underwriting Unity in this mural as part of their Residencies for Recovery program. So thank you to the South Dakota Arts Council for making this wonderful original mural be a part of the Journey Museum and Learning Center. We will We'll look forward to educating our community members and our visitors on the messaging of all of us contending with life, working together, living together, growing, changing, and hopefully we can heal our community through art. And so thank you to South Dakota Arts Council.
And so at the end of that, you all saw a little bit of a tease, and I'm glad Connor's back here with me. And, we got the opportunity to work very closely with Evans, and what a wonderful artist, and very inspirational. And it provided us with kind of a lightning bolt was, why don't we put some more of Evans' art into the museum as we celebrate unity? So Connor, if you would share at the end there, we saw a little plaque of our exhibit that'll be opening featuring Evans Flammond Senior's art. Could you talk a little bit about the exhibit that'll be in our gallery in addition to Unity?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Troy. So I guess first I'd just kind of like to give a little bit of background on Evans, because I think he's a really talented artist. And Evans first came to my attention and had an exhibit at the Sioux Indian Museum. It was one of the first exhibits I did when I started here about 8 years ago. And so when we had the opportunity to apply for this grant through the South Dakota Arts Council, I was already aware of his background as a mural artist. He's best known for his work as a ledger artist, but he had done several large-scale public murals at Prairie Wind Casino, as well as in the city of Hot Springs. But he had never done a mural in Rapid City. But I knew that he would really be kind of the perfect fit for this piece, because his murals really blend that traditional aesthetic of ledger art with some more contemporary issues and feel. And he's really a meticulous artist, and went to, as you can kind of see from that video, really went to great lengths to very carefully plan that whole mural down to the smallest detail. And I think it paid off in the long run. So it's the only mural of his in Rapid City, and I think it's really something special. But as Troy mentioned, as the mural was being created, we realized that this was kind of the perfect opportunity to show the whole breadth of his work, and to get the opportunity to show off his ledger work as well too. And it's really amazing to see, even in just 8 years, the progress that he's made as an artist. He was already a very accomplished artist, but I think he's taken it to a whole new level with his current art, and is really starting to kind of push the boundaries a little bit more. I think I feel really confident in saying he's probably one of the top 3 ledger artists here in South Dakota, along with Don Montello, and I'm blanking on the name. Well, it'll come to me. But let me show you some of his art. You're going to be in for a real treat. We'll have over probably 14, 15 of his original ledger pieces, but he doesn't just do ledger art. He's really a jack of all trades. He does painted bison hides, and we'll have one of those on display, a full-size bull bison hide about 8 feet wide. So I'd love for everybody to come see that. He does painted skulls, carved horse sticks, really everything under the sun. So with that, I want to show you all one piece that I think is probably one of my favorites. I'll try to talk while I'm
multitasking during programming is always a challenge.
And I think one of the things that makes Evans' ledger art special is that he's also gone to great lengths to source the age-appropriate ledger art. So a lot of artists who are working today, it can be hard to find these old ledgers. Ledger art is sort of in its second wave, is sort of the modern wave. Goes back to probably the 1980s was when artists like Don Montello started to revive it. And Evans has been doing this work for over 20 years, so he's kind of one of those original artists. And as time has gone by, it's become harder and harder to source these antique ledger books. But one of the pieces, or one of the things that Evans is really proud of, is he has found this amazing book from Dawes County, Nebraska, a ledger book from 1905. And that's the source for a lot of his paper. So this particular piece, which actually I'm really excited because the Sioux Indian Museum purchased this to be part of our permanent collection. So this will be a piece that we'll get to keep forever. And this is called Two Worlds, and it's a depiction of Crazy Horse. And what Evans is really kind of exploring here is the challenges that Crazy Horse as an individual has faced, and that the challenges that his people have faced as well too, both in the past and still today, of kind of trying to bridge these two worlds between their traditional culture and the modern world and dealing with modern technology. And I think one thing that that stands out in this piece too, as I said before, is just how precise he is and controlled with his lines and the use of color. And in his latest work, I'll show one or two other images. He's really using the blues and greens in just this incredible way that I haven't seen any other ledger artist do. And you see this in the mural too, just the perfection and how closely he worked on those fine lines and details that you don't see in a lot of other pieces. One other thing that I would just like to point out in this piece, and when you come to the museum and get to see Unity, keep your eye out for another little sort of hidden mystery in the gallery. But one of Evan's signatures of all of his work, he's got a beautiful signature that you can see in the upper right corner that he inscribes on all his work. But these soaring eagles are in every single ledger piece that he does. And so he snuck in a few eagles somewhere in the gallery. And I would invite all of you to come try to find them. And it kind of adds a bit of excitement and flair to the new mural.
Definitely the Eagles ad.
Yeah. So let me show one of his other pieces. Just as kind of a little bit of a contrast. That one wasn't quite what I wanted.
And while you're
yeah, I'll let you
working on that, the name of the exhibit is "I'm Still Here," and I believe it's "I'm Still Here," and now I'm doing what Connor's doing. I'm looking for something healed, changing, and growing, I believe. And I apologize to Evans if I got that in the wrong order. But what is important and significant about the title is just everything that all of us have been through over the past year, and the art that he created during that time. And what's incredibly, I love that piece. What's incredible about Evans is he's not just a ledger artist. He does murals, he works off hides, he's got skulls, he's got sculptures. He does a lot of different mediums, and he does them all well. Whereas there's a lot of artists that, and there's nothing wrong with being a great ledger artist or great at painting on hides, but this guy combines lots of things all in one package.
He really does. And I think this is one of the pieces where he's kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit and kind of touching into a little bit more modern themes. And has a couple pieces in the show that he kind of refers to as biomechanical. So a little bit of steampunk elements that he's starting to pull in here, and obviously a very traditional depiction with the bison skull. But if you look closely, you can see he's kind of exposing some of the inner workings. In this case, it's a sort of anatomical, maybe a little bit of brain on this one. In others, there's bits of gears and things like that. So he's a big motorcycle fan and rider, a Harley guy, goes to rally every year. So he likes that mechanical aspect as well too, that he brings into a lot of his art. So I think, it's really going to be a special show. It'll be opening May 19th with the reopening of the museum. So I would really invite everybody to come in and see some of the finest ledger art anywhere in the country.
Yeah, definitely. And the name of the exhibit is "I'm Still Here, Changed, Growing, Healing." And I kind of fumbled around with that. I'm not sure if I said it in the right order the first time, and I apologize if I got that wrong, but it is, I'm still here, changed, growing, and healing. And again, we're very grateful for having Evans be in our museum. And, it's unique days, when you're not open Monday through Friday, and we've got people working in the museum, painting murals and we're making videos in other parts of the museum. And, we'll probably never do this again. I kind of hope we don't ever do it again as we start to be open more days. But maybe it'll be its own program someday, what we went through. Connor, thank you. And I'm going to come back to you. And I did send a chat out to everybody. If you guys have questions for our curators, one of our curators who couldn't be here tonight, Mark Slocum, unfortunately he got sick today. But one of our partners here, the Journey, in case you guys didn't know, is a multitude of partnerships. So South Dakota School of Mines, Technology, Geology, Paleontology, South Dakota Archaeological Research Center for Archaeology, the Department of Interior, the Indian Arts and Crafts Board, our Sioux Indian Museum collection with Connor, Minnelusa Historical Association for Rapid City History, and of course the City of Rapid City. But Mark did have the opportunity to work with our marketing manager, Alyssa Hinsrud, and put together a little promo piece for the Minnelusa Historical Association, because I know they've got some new neat things that are coming out in the museum here this summer. And so we're going to quick show you that video. Then we're going to pull Connor and Corey back into here, and we're going to start firing some questions at those guys.
Hi, my name is Mark Slocum, Executive Director of the Minnelusa Historical Association and Pioneer Collection here at the Journey Museum, and we're excited to welcome you back. Today, I'm in front of our newest exhibit, Pioneer Journeys. Here you can explore some of our historic photo collections. Minnelusa has a collection of around 10,000 historic photographs of the Black Hills area. You can see our complete collection online at www.minnelusa.org or by clicking here. Online, you can find out more about our organization, Black Hills Pioneer history, or how to become a member of the Minnelusa Historical Association. On our digital archive site, you can use a keyword search or browse random photos and request a high-resolution copy for a small fee. Members get exclusive access to our Western History Library, photo collections, and archives. As well as invites to our annual events. Follow the Minnelusa Historical Association on Facebook for our weekly photograph and other historic posts. Again, we can't wait to have you back to explore our galleries and have fun while you learn and play with the entire family. The journey continues.
That was Mark's daughter, Mara. So, it was a cute pair there, don't you think, everybody? Corey, I see you've joined us back, and I know Connor will be joining us back. Part of what we wanted to share with everybody tonight was the opportunity to ask curators questions. Because, you guys have got that mysterious job in the museum. Everybody wonders, well, how do you become a curator? What do they do? All of that. So, first I'd like, Corey, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your educational background, a little bit about yourself, and kind of give some people some background here of how you got into this crazy business just in time for the pandemic.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name's Corey Christensen. I am a curator at the Journey Museum and Learning Center, but I am actually located in Pierre, South Dakota right now. I have a background in museum studies. I actually have my master's degree from the University of South Dakota in museum studies. So I have the education to go with my curator title. I have always wanted to work in museums ever since I was a very young child, and I've just kind of fell into it. I was lucky enough to elbow my way into the Journey Museum, and I've been there ever since.
Corey, thank you. Connor, can you share with everybody a little bit about your background, your education, and how you found your way to Rapid City, South Dakota and the Journey Museum?
Sure. Well, it was a long, circuitous route, I guess I'll say. Can you hear me okay? It's like,
Yeah,
Okay,
you
good.
sound fine.
Okay. So I actually fell into museums by accident. I was sort of finishing up a classics major and wondering what I was going to do with a classics degree once I got out of college. When I took an internship at the University Museum and really kind of fell in love with the museum field, that was how I first found out about it, was through an internship. And my initial interest was in the artifacts themselves and in the material preservation and conservation of them. So when I learned that there was this job called art conservator, where you actually got to touch the stuff that nobody else touched and restore these ancient Egyptian mummies and things like that, I was pretty quickly hooked and decided I wanted to go to graduate school for that. So I went to one of 4 graduate schools in the country for art conservation up in Buffalo, New York, and finished that program. Found myself out in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is where I first started working with Native American art collections. Took a little detour back home to Kentucky, where I grew up, and worked at the Museum of the Horse for a few years as a curator, because I was kind of trying to branch out from conservation and do a little bit more interpretation and development of exhibits. And after a few years in Kentucky, I decided I wanted to head back west and work with Native American arts and culture again. And this opportunity at the Journey came up, and it was really just been a perfect fit.
Well, thank you both. I think that, again, people, they're always fascinated by what goes on in the archives. I mean, Connor, for you, I have a question. The Sioux Indian Museum collection, it puts our museum in the top 10 of a lot of museum lists as far as best Native American culture and history museums to go see in the entire country. And here we are in Rapid City, South Dakota. We're pretty lucky to have such a tremendous collection, but I'd like for you to kind of give everybody a little bit of an idea of just, well, how many pieces is in that collection? How many pieces are you responsible for making sure we're preserving, conserving them, and then also sharing with our public for educational purposes?
Sure. That's a great question. So we have about 4,000 pieces total in the collection here at the museum. Unfortunately, we only have space to display a very small amount of those, but that's the case for every museum. On average, a museum might show about 10% of its entire collection. In some cases, like the big museums, like the Metropolitan Museum, you're probably looking at about 2% of the collections on display. So we actually show a lot more than most museums, and we try to rotate things out periodically. I think another thing that makes the Sioux Indian Museum collection really special is its history, and the museum was founded, and the core of the collection came from a gentleman named John Anderson, who is a professional photographer and also owned a trading post, the Jordan Mercantile Exchange, in Rosebud, South Dakota. And he lived there for over 30 years, from 1894 until about 1935, when he sold the trading post and he moved to Rapid City. And during that time that he lived in Rosebud, he put together an amazing collection of really outstanding artifacts. And the other thing that was special is he actually documented his collections, who he got them from, who had made them in many cases. And then, because he was a professional photographer, he was, throughout his entire time there in Rosebud, was taking pictures of the people, the prominent chiefs that lived there, taking pictures of daily life. We have lots of wonderful pictures of actually artifacts from the collection being used and worn. The Big Missouri Winter Count, which is on display in our story walls, we have a historic photo of the gentleman who painted that, that John Anderson took. And that's on display at the museum as well, too. So that's definitely worth seeing. And I think that really, as curators, I'm always sad sometimes when people call and they want to donate an artifact, but they don't know anything about it or where it came from or any history. And oftentimes, we have to turn down donations like that because we have so many artifacts that without that historical connection, the same reason archaeologists aren't interested in arrowheads if they don't know where they came from. The object, half of its importance and value is that historical connection. So I think that's one of the things that makes the Sioux Indian Museum so special, is that our connection is so well documented. It has this incredible connection to South Dakota. All the artifacts come from here, and they've been here ever since.
Well, thank you, Connor. So Corey, I'd like you to jump in. And, originally back when the Journey was built and opened in 1997, the original founders didn't necessarily visualize that the Journey would hold any collections themselves, rather through the partnerships. But it became, as the years grew by, it became obvious that the journey needed to fill some gaps, and specifically around the 1972 Black Hills flood. And so, Corey, you've had your hand in kind of, I don't know, categorizing or putting it into some form of order. Talk a little bit for our audience about the Journeys collection, the kind of the in-betweens. And, we're coming up on June 9th, 1972, or June 9th, 2021 will be 49 years. In 1972, 49 years in the history here. So talk about that. We're going to mark that date. We're going to look forward to 2022 because it'll be 50 years since that event. But Corey, can you talk a little bit about the Journeys collection and give people some sense on all of our efforts there?
Sure. So the Journey Museum and Learning Center, like Troy said, it wasn't originally designed to hold a collection itself. It was reliant on the partners to tell different stories. And over the years, that's been changed. We've been able to collect different aspects of different histories to help better round out stories that have already been told, as well as stories that needed to be told, like the 1972 Black Hills flood. Some of the best artifacts and the most recognizable artifacts that the Journey Museum and Learning Center actually has is the giant stuffed bison that is in the natural history section and the bighorn sheep. We were lucky enough to get those from Custer State Park, but they do actually fall under the Journey Museum and Learning Center's collection. We do have some artifacts from the 1972 Black Hills flood as well. We are continually organizing and reorganizing and trying to find the best way to tell those stories in a way that helps the whole museum and not just the Journey Museum's specific collection.
Thank you, Corey. So here's a question that I have for both of you. And if one of you has the answer sooner, then you can just wave. But if there was something that you guys, any one object that you could add to the collections that currently have, what would that be? What would be something that maybe the Journey really wishes they had, or the Sioux Indian Museum collection really wishes they had? I mean, and Connor, you got over 4,000 pieces, and Corey, you got all kinds of stuff here and there, but maybe you guys don't have the luxury of knowing exactly what you would want, but do you have something that you would be in mind?
I do. Well, first, I'll answer that question, and then I'd like to show one item from the collection too that I think is kind of illustrates what I was talking about before, this amazing history behind the collection. The one item that I discovered that we were missing, because I've been in the process, it's been taking much longer than I wish, but we've been slowly redeveloping our horse exhibit. And part of that was installing a new horse mannequin and moving our saddles and beaded saddle blankets onto that mannequin. But one of the traditional items of Lakota horse regalia is a horse mask, these beautiful beaded or quilled masks for horses. And search as I might in the collection, I could not find one. In fact, the only Lakota horse mask that I could find in the Indian Arts and Crafts Board collection, ironically, is at our other museum in Browning, Montana on the Blackfeet Reservation. And they wouldn't let me bring it back here. So the good news is I turned that challenge into an opportunity, as Troy would say, and we commissioned a local artist named James Starcomes out to make a horse mask for the collection. So he actually looked at some of the historic items that were in the collection, these beautiful hoof covers, so kind of like fancy shoes for your horse, that were covered in dentalium shells, these small shells that are imported from Mexico. And have been for hundreds or thousands of years up into this part of the country. And so he basically made a new mask to kind of reference those historic ones in the collection.
So what you're saying is we've got something coming new that I haven't even seen yet.
Exactly. Well, I just put the mask on the horse last week so that the photographer from South Dakota Department of Tourism could take pictures of it. So
okay, so come and see us on May 19th or any day after that. We can see, and the artist's name again, so that everybody heard that, because we want to make sure we give props.
Sure. The artist is James Starr comes out. He's probably the finest artist working in luck with the horse regalia right now. He was really instrumental in the exhibit that the Red Cloud Heritage Center put together a few years ago called Song for a Horse Nation. He's had documentaries made about his work, featured by the Minnesota Public Broadcasting. So he's really an outstanding artist, and he's from Pine Ridge. One other piece from the collection that I thought was really interesting, that I just think really kind of illustrates this historical connection, is this piece. And this is a shield owned by a gentleman named Foolbull. And this is currently on display at the museum. It's really kind of one of our treasures. And this shield was carried by Foolbull when he was a young man at the Battle of Little Bighorn. He was about 16 or 17 when he was at the battle. It's made of bison hide. And what many people don't know is these historic shields, which would have a wood base and then a very, very hard bison hide stretched over it. They would specifically use the hump of the bison or the upper back of the bison hide, were actually strong enough to stop a bullet from a muzzle loading musket. So not a modern bullet, but the type of rifles that were being fired in the Civil War and shortly after couldn't penetrate one of these well-made buffalo shields. This piece actually was restored by staff from the Indian Arts and Crafts, from the Sioux Indian Museum in 1968. So some of the damaged feathers and trade cloth that you see on the upper part were replaced. But the shield and the painting itself is original, and the figure that you see is kind of a protective image there for the wearer. But what's really cool about this piece is that, and you can see this in the lobby, you might have noticed when you walk into the lobby of the Journey Museum, there's these amazing banners hanging there, these photo murals, and one of them is of Chief Foolbull holding this shield. And that's a photograph that John Anderson took about 1910. So really amazing piece just in itself, but when we take it in the bigger picture with all the history and historical photographs, it really is a truly priceless piece there at the museum.
Thank you, Connor. Now, Corey, you got all excited there a while ago, but Connor beat you to the punch. So I'll let you jump in.
I wanted to tell Connor, and this kind of ties back to John Anderson too, is that photo of the winter count that you were talking about, that's actually on display at the Cultural Heritage Center as well.
Oh, that's great.
So it reaches all the way across the state, which is, I thought was really cool. Yeah. As for an artifact that I wish the museum would have, I'm sure there's a ton of them. I'm sure I could list Lord knows how many, but I don't have a specific one that I could name at the moment.
I thought you were going to have a wish list that we could get out there for everybody, Corey.
Not that simple.
So this is on a personal note to both of you. I mean, you work in museums, you're curators. Do either of you collect anything?
That's a good question. I've never really dived into it too much, but there are, as a museum professional, there are some ethical considerations that we have to be careful of. And one of those is that you're not supposed to collect in competition with your institution. So for me, I mean, I do purchase some prints of, Native American art here and there, but you have to be really careful to kind of not muddy the waters there. So what I collect that is not in competition with the Sioux Indian Museum is fish art, fishing and fish related art, and antique fishing reels and
Tommy Trout autographs.
Yeah, exactly. So that aligns with my other interests, or pinball art. That's another thing too. So.
I collect things that remind me of things of what I've done at the museum. So for like different exhibits, I'll get a necklace that has, for when we got the bison, I got a necklace that had a little buffalo on it. And there are like little bits and pieces of that sort of thing that I collect. I have a mannequin hand that I took as an excess piece from a different museum. So there's
Halloween parties, right?
I have scared people with it, not purposely, but it has happened. I collect things that remind me of all of the fun that I've done at these different places. And I always like taking pictures, if I'm allowed to, of course, but I do like taking pictures.
So for both of you, there's been nothing to compare to the last 14 months here, what we've all experienced. But as we go into 2021 and we think about this year and into the future, what do you think is going to be the role of museums in our communities? Who wants to go first? That's a big one. That's a thoughtful one.
Yeah, that is a big, I think that museums will, in a certain sense, continue to fulfill their role of being a place to keep a community's history and continuing to share that history. I think with everything that's gone on in the last year, not just with COVID, but with, society in general, that museums are taking a long overdue look at their own history and their own priorities, and whether they've truly been inclusive for all people in the community. And I think I've taken a hard look at the Sioux Indian Museum itself, and questioned certainly in the Native American field, the decolonization movement of museums is really kind of rising. And interestingly, I never would have, when I first started here, I kind of thought, well, the Sioux Indian Museum is different, right? Like the collections here were purchased by a trading post owner who lived on the reservation. They weren't obtained through war or looting or pillaging or anything like that, like the Benin bronzes from Africa. But, as time has gone on and the definition of things have changed and I've learned more, I've come to realize that, even in a certain sense, even a trading post owner like John Anderson was, to be honest, taking advantage economically of, some of the residents of Rosebud who might not have sold their collections to him if they'd had other options. So, it kind of gives you pause and makes you take a hard look at your collections. And again, it sort of reinforces how important it is that we make sure that those collections are still accessible to the communities that they came from. So I think that's one thing that museums will have to grapple with. There's no easy answer to that, and every museum kind of has to find its own way. But I think it's a really positive development for museums, because if we want to continue to be relevant and important, we really need to embrace a larger and more diverse audience going forward.
Thank you, Connor. Corey, that's a hard conversation to follow, but I think there's still plenty of opportunities. So what would you like to say?
I 100% agree with Connor, and I think museums will be reflecting on how they tell the stories too. So not only is it where did the artifacts come from, but it's what do these artifacts represent? How did they get here? And I think those stories will be told more and more often as time goes on now too, because of the way society is changing.
And so, Corey, do you think there's anything else that you see happening, aside from what you and Connor are both talking about there for museums and their roles in communities?
I mean, I think museums are always going to be an educational place. They are always moving forward on the next big educational thing, because nobody who works in museums wants museums to go out of style. So they're always moving forward.
And I think related to that, the most recent exhibit installation, I suppose, at the museum about missing and murdered Indigenous women represents exactly the developments that are happening in museums, where we are becoming a space to invite other people in to share their stories. We're not controlling the narrative. We're just a space for discussion and education and learning. And so I think that's a really exciting and positive development in the field as well, too, that we can really open our doors to the community as a whole, and really invite them to tell their stories as they would like audiences to hear it.
Yeah, and Connor, I thank you for bringing that up. If you come find the Journey Museum and Learning Center today out in our front yards, we have an exhibit that's been installed. It's called The Earth is Weeping, and it is in public awareness of murdered, missing Indigenous women. This was put together by the Red Ribbon Skirt Society. The Journey just said yes. And so you go to their Facebook pages to find out and learn and yes, this exhibit's up for 30 days, but I assure you that for this organization, this is a every day, every month effort to try to raise public awareness. The exhibit went up on May 5th, which is the day of public awareness for this issue. I am pretty confident that museums are going to become even more relevant into the future as we continue to be a place for discussion and dialogue where we can use history to learn from it. I mean, and by us putting history out there for what really happened and having discussions about that, whether what we can learn from those experiences, I think that that's going to make museums even more viable than they ever have been before. And so I'm excited for that opportunity to be a place of public discourse. And that's why you see programs like Journey Discussions and kind of keep watching everything that's going on here at the Journey. We're getting close to the end. If you should have a question for Corey or Connor, please fire that out. I'm going to give both of them an opportunity to add or put any other comments in that they would like in regards to the collections or the summer or something you might have thought of over the course of our conversation, because believe it or not, time flies. We've already been doing this for 50 minutes. Corey, I'll start with you. Is there anything that you'd like to add to the audience? And I'll wait as I do a last call on questions to wrap up.
The Journey Museum and Learning Center will be recognizing the 49th commemoration of the 1972 Black Hills flood on June 9th. We will be doing a presentation, and I urge everyone to keep an eye out for the 50th commemoration next year. It will have been 50 years since the 1972 Black Hills flood, and we at the Journey Museum and Learning Center strive to recognize and tell those stories.
Thank you, Corey. Connor, anything that we must have missed something?
Well, I just wanted to mention, and I'm putting it in the chat right now, is that even though Evans Flammond will be our first physical exhibit at the museum in almost a year, the Indian Arts and Crafts Board has been busy putting together online virtual exhibits representing all three of our museums. So I just shared in the chat a link to our website where we call it an online viewing room, but you can see about 5 exhibits that we've put together over the last year featuring Lakota artists, but also Blackfeet artists, Kiowa artists from Oklahoma. There's some amazing art to see there. You can learn more about the artists, the pieces themselves. If you're interested in purchasing any of those pieces, there's contact information for the artists on the exhibit, so you can reach out to them directly and take it from there. So hope everybody enjoys those exhibits as well too.
Thanks for sharing that. And for those folks who might end up watching this program on demand, we'll make sure that there's links to this somewhere on our website too, so that we can continue to share those exhibits out there. Because I'm not exactly sure what happens with chats once we're done with everything, but we'll make sure that we keep everybody connected here. So as I close, again, I just want to encourage all of our members and everyone to come out and see us again. Just stop in, say hi, wander around the museum. There's been lots of touch-ups, lots of new signs. There's more things coming too. You're going to see continued things happening as investments inside the museum. And I've got a little graphic I want to leave everybody with, and that is we've got a little support organization around here called Friends. And our friends were big for our museum last year in 2020. We had more people donate to help sustain the Journey Museum and Learning Center's mission and vision during the troubling times of 2020 than ever before. We had more people sending us money. And, you know, the reality is that we're going to need more to continue to persevere and sustain ourselves to celebrate that 25th birthday. There's more details online as far as the levels of donations. Really, to be perfectly honest with all of you who are watching this program, there is no donation that's too small and definitely no donation too large in regards to helping support our museum and its cause. Our mission to preserve the history and heritage of our area's culture and of our people is the same. And our vision of creating knowledge, I think, is stronger than ever as we talked about the roles of museums evolving through the course of the events that have transpired in 2020, 2021, moving forward in our communities. And so the journey is going to persevere, and we are going to be engaged in all those things. So go to our website, go see journeymuseum.org, give me a call, come in and see us. We'll be happy to share more information on everything. But I think we're about ready to wrap up. And so I have to close with my slogan, you guys. I have to say, somehow, some way, the journey continues. Thank you all for joining us.